A reading today from Luke's Gospel. This is yet another confrontation between Jesus and the Pharisees. At that very hour, some Pharisees came and said to him, "Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you." Jesus said to them, "Go and tell that fox for me. Listen, I am casting out demons and performing cures today and tomorrow, and on the third day I finish my work. Yet today, tomorrow, and the next day I must be on my way, because it is impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often I have desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings. And you were not willing. See, your house is left to you, and I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, 'Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.'" This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. We continue today our sermon series on spiritual practices, and so not only are we talking about a few practices, but we're trying them out, although maybe in miniature form in worship together. And so today we're going to be trying out some different ways of posturing our physical body that our posture of hearts might be willing and ready for prayer. And so we're going to try that out in a little bit, but we're doing this, it's a little bit different, I know, but we're doing this for a couple reasons. One is to tend to our spirits, the well-being of our spirits, but also to spend time on our relationship with Jesus and to be ready for Easter in just about a month. So we're doing these things to be ready for that, to be resurrected people. And so, it's kind of a tough passage today. A lot of our Lenten passages are kind of difficult ones. They're negative in tone. They can be harsh in visual imagery. I mean, just look at this. Get away from here. Herod wants to kill you. Tell that fox for me. Casting out demons. It is impossible. Prophet to be killed. Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets, stones those who are sent to it. You were not willing. Your house is left to you. You will not see me. This is harsh, confrontational language, right? It's kind of even tough just to read. And so Jesus is approaching the cross. We might expect for things to get more and more interesting, shall we say, more and more dramatic, more and more harsh. Unfortunately, it doesn't have to be that way. Jesus came and humanity could have received him differently. But we know where the story goes. Most of us do. It leads to the cross, which fortunately leads to a greater victory. There are really only two kind of positive lines in this passage today. One is, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord," and that should be familiar to us. That was a traditional greeting. The folks who lived in Jerusalem would greet pilgrims who came to Jerusalem for the Passover feast. They would greet them that way, and that's the line that we recite on Palm Sunday when we remember Jesus' entry into Jerusalem for that Passover feast and what would become his trial and his death and eventually his resurrection. The other passage is this: "How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings." In the midst of all this harsh language, this confrontation, we have this beautiful poetic line, an image of the Christ seeking to gather us under his wings. Even those who were the wayward, the self-righteous, the hard-hearted, the sinful, the lost, the very ones who would torture and kill Christ. He wanted to gather and shelter them under his wings. This reflects Christ's intention, his desire for us to save us, to embrace us, to protect us. And what a wonderful, beautiful image. I found a picture online. I'm going to show it to you today. This image, I can, the sources, I couldn't find a source for this picture, but I do know the blog it came from. But that's Jerusalem in the background, or at least that's an image of it. And we see the silhouette of Christ wanting to gather, to bring them in, to welcome them in. Thank you. And so I've been thinking about that posture he has. It's a different posture there, isn't it? That's a different posture than what we might read in these other lines. Get away from here. Herod wants to kill you. You tell that fox for me. Do you see the words have different stances? They have a different physical posture to them. Then, how I've longed to gather you together like a hen gathers her brood under her wings. A different posture, a different way of being physically that shows a different way of being spiritually. It's interesting how much we communicate outside of our words. Professor Moravian, Professor Emeritus of Psychology at UCLA, said in a groundbreaking study years ago, and it's since been debated, but he said that 7% of our message is conveyed through words, 38% through vocal elements like tone and so forth, and then perhaps 55% through our body language, other facial expressions and so forth. And while those exact percentages may be debated, I think that we'll find that our posture, our body language communicates a great deal, right? It says a great deal about what our intent is, how we're feeling. I think we'll find, too, that our postures, our gestures can evoke certain feelings in us. People who do endurance sports will often tell you, and I've seen studies on this, that if you see somebody running down the road and it looks like it's hard, right? They've got a scowl on their face, and you think, boy, that can't be fun, can it? The same person might put a smile on their face, and even though they're not really wanting to smile, they do, and it actually releases endorphins in their body, and they feel better and are able to go further. Our physical being can affect our spiritual being and our will. And so we're going to try something out here. We're kind of going back to Sunday school. Remember when we learned the Bible stories through different motions and different postures? This is something in Christian tradition for many centuries, generations. Russian Orthodox churches, they'll stand for all of worship, and it might go hours, it might be hours long, but they'll stand the whole time. Why? For one reason, it's out of reverence. Catholic traditions and other, sort of higher church traditions we think of, who might kneel a lot at different times in the service. Or why do they do that? Well, and for part, it's showing repentance and reverence. Okay? Non-denominational churches, they might put their arms up, and we ask, well, why do they do that? They might do that because they are reaching up to God, or they are waiting to receive the Spirit from God. So there's different reasons for different physical postures. So we're going to try out a few different postures today. I'm going to ask our parish associate, Michael Vinson, to come here and help me with this. And I'm going to ask you, we're not going to stand the whole time, but if you'll stand just for a few moments to try a few of these out. So Michael's going to read for us the first, that one line, how how I've longed to gather you. And while he does that, I'd like for us to try out two different postures. One is this, so go ahead. I promise I won't take a picture of you, because that people don't have to see that Presbyterians sometimes do this. Okay, so if you'll do that, and then the other posture is this. Okay, so let's try that out, Michael.
How often I have desired to gather your children together. As a hen gathers her brood under her wings.
Let's try that again.
How often have I desired to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings.
Now let's try the inverse of that. Let's stay here and go in the opposite direction. See if we feel differently about the passage.
How often have I desired to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings.
Okay, one more time.
How often have I desired to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings.
Thank you. Please be seated. We're gonna try out another one here. This is another very, very well-known passage. You'll know this probably as soon as Michael starts to read it. But there are 4 positions we're gonna go through here, and the first is one that we just did, both hands clasped over the heart. And the next one is with arms kind of stretched upward, like this. And then the next one will be sitting with our heads bowed down and our hands folded, like we might normally often do in prayer. And then the fourth one is sitting then looking forward with our palms up. And you can rest your hands on your knees if you like for that. Okay? So different postures. So again, hands heart, hands up, hands folded, and then palms up. And if Michael, if you will read that for us.
You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength.
All right, let's try that one more time.
You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength.
Thank you. Right now, we're going to listen to a song. Will you tell us a word or two about it?
The song is written by J. Philip Newell. J. Philip Newell is one of the leading scholars in Celtic spirituality in the world today. He teaches all over the world. He teaches at Ghost Ranch. He was warden of the Abbey at Iona, where I studied with him one time. And he is very interested in how we relate spiritually to other people around us and in the world and with the creation, which is a very strong theme in Celtic theology. So he has written several of these songs, prayers, and so I think we're going to try one of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so our first motion will be palms up, like this, like we've done, and then the second one will be arms up. So if you'll just watch Michael and I for when we do which. There's a instrumental section in the middle, and I invite you to try out any prayer posture that your body, your spirit wants to go to, and just enjoy it and pray. As you pray, listen for God speaking to you, and listen for how the Spirit is interceding on your behalf to God. Okay? Thank you, Michael, and thank you for trying that out with us. As I said last week, if we try out these 5 practices and 4 of them you decide they're not for you, but you find one that really helps you in your prayer life and brings you closer to Christ, then it's well worth trying all of them, right? I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was meaningful for you, and that maybe you'll find a way to do this throughout your week. I would say this is a form of prayer that's not good when you're driving. There are some forms of prayer that are really good when you're driving. Don't do this one. Try one of the other ones. But thank you, and we'll try out another one next week.